The federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. stood tall against the clear blue sky. Inside courtroom number 4, the air felt heavy with tension. Every seat was taken. Reporters filled the back rows, their pens ready and notebooks open. This was the day everyone had been waiting for. Vikram Patel adjusted his tie as he sat at the defendant's table. At 35, he had already made a name for himself as one of the most respected investigative journalists at the Washington Tribune. His series of articles about government surveillance had shocked the nation. Now those same articles had landed him in court. Judge Diana Barrett entered the courtroom, her black robe flowing behind her as she walked to the bench. The court clerk called for everyone to rise. Judge Barrett had a reputation for being tough, but fair. Today, her face showed no emotion as she took her seat and looked down at Vikram. "You may be seated," she said, her voice clear and firm. Vikram sat down next to his attorney, Susan Miller. Susan was one of the best media lawyers in the city. She had defended reporters for 20 years. Her gray suit matched her short silver hair. She patted Vikram's arm gently, a small gesture to calm his nerves. "We are here today in the case of Barrett versus Patel and the Washington Tribune," Judge Barrett said. "Mr. Patel, you have published a series of articles making serious claims about government officials, including allegations that directly involve me." Vikram nodded slightly. His articles had revealed a secret program that spied on American citizens. He had named Judge Barrett as one of the officials who had approved the program years ago, before she became a judge. "Your Honor," Susan Miller stood up. "My client was simply doing his job as a journalist. The First Amendment protects—" "The First Amendment does not protect libel, Ms. Miller," Judge Barrett cut in. "Mr. Patel has made claims that damage my reputation without providing any concrete evidence." The judge turned her attention back to Vikram. "Mr. Patel, this court demands you reveal the sources behind these accusations. Your refusal constitutes contempt of court." The courtroom was silent. Everyone knew what was at stake. If Vikram revealed his sources, he would break the most sacred rule of journalism. If he refused, he could go to jail. Susan Miller started to object again, but Vikram gently touched her arm. He had prepared for this moment. He reached down into his leather briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. "Your Honor," he said, standing up. His voice was steady despite his racing heart. "I'd like to submit this into evidence." He handed the folder to the court clerk, who took it to Judge Barrett. The judge opened it, her eyes scanning the first page, then the second. By the third page, her face had lost its color. "What is this?" she asked, her voice slightly less confident than before. "It's a declassified intelligence memo from 2020, Vikram replied. "You'll find your signature on page 3, authorizing the surveillance program my articles have exposed." "Then Courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Barrett's hands trembled slightly as she held the document. "Order," she demanded, banging her gavel. The room fell silent again. Vikram had spent months chasing this document. It had started 6 months ago with an anonymous email. "Check Defense Intelligence Agency Memo, DAR A7629B. Barrett authorized it all." That single tip had sent him down a rabbit hole of government secrets and lies. "Your Honor," the government attorney John Peters jumped up from his seat. "We request a short recess to examine this document." Judge Barrett seemed to regain her composure. "Granted. Court will recess for 1 hour." As the judge left the bench, reporters rushed out of the courtroom to file their stories. Vikram sat down, feeling the weight of the past 6 months on his shoulders. "That was risky," Susan whispered to him. "Where did you get that document?" "I can't tell you," Vikram replied, "but it's real." In the hallway outside, Vikram slipped away from the crowd and found a quiet corner. He took out his phone and dialed a number. "They've seen it," he said when someone answered. "And?" The voice on the other end belonged to Ben Harris, his editor at the Washington Tribune. Barrett looked shocked. "They've called a recess." "Be careful, Vic," Ben warned. "This goes higher than Barrett. The program she authorized led to those agents. Deaths in Karachi. Powerful people want this buried." "Too late now," Vikram said. Once this document is entered into court records, it becomes public. As he ended the call, Vikram noticed a woman watching him from across the hallway, Linda Vasquez, from the records division. She had been his secret helper, pointing him toward the classified files. She gave him a small nod before disappearing into the crowd. When court resumed, the atmosphere had changed. Judge Barrett seemed more subdued. John Peters, the government attorney, approached the bench with Vikram's attorney. "Your Honor," Peters said, "the government acknowledges that the document appears genuine. However, we maintain that its release was unauthorized and may compromise national security." Susan Miller countered immediately. "The document was officially declassified 3 months ago, Your Honor. It was simply hidden from public view. My client has broken no laws by obtaining it." Judge Barrett looked at Vikram for a long moment. "Mr. Patel, your articles claimed that the surveillance program I authorized led to the deaths of 3 intelligence agents in Pakistan. Do you have evidence of this connection?" Vikram stood again. "Yes, Your Honor. The second half of the memo details the Karachi operation and how information from the surveillance program was used to plan it. The operation was compromised because the program collected flawed intelligence." The courtroom was so quiet that Vikram could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Judge Barrett seemed to be wrestling with herself, her judicial duty fighting against her personal involvement. "I was told the program was legal," she finally said, almost to herself. Then more firmly, "This case is more complex than it initially appeared. I am recusing myself effective immediately." As Judge Barrett stood to leave, Vikram caught her. For a brief moment he saw something there. Regret, perhaps, or fear. Then she was gone, escorted out by her clerk. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Vikram. "Mr. Patel, how did you obtain the classified memo? Will you name other officials involved in the program? Do you fear for your safety after exposing this cover-up?" Vikram raised his hands to quiet them. "I'll answer questions at the Tribune's press conference tomorrow. For now, I'll just say this. Government officials must be held accountable for their actions, especially when those actions cost American lives." As the crowd dispersed, Vikram noticed a black SUV parked across the street. 2 men in dark suits watched him from inside. He wasn't surprised. His investigation had made powerful enemies. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Storage Unit 227, Westlake Facility, Code 5591. Go now. They're coming for the rest of the evidence." Vikram looked at the SUV once more, then walked quickly toward the subway station. The story wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. Judge Barrett was only one piece of a much larger puzzle. And somewhere in that storage unit was the evidence that would reveal the rest of the truth. As he descended into the subway, Vikram thought about the 3 agents who had died in Karachi. Their families still didn't know the full story of why they had died. He owed it to them to finish what he had started, no matter the cost to himself. The train arrived, and Vikram stepped on board. The doors closed behind him just as the 2 men from the SUV reached the top of the subway stairs. For now, at least, he was one step ahead, but tomorrow would bring new challenges and perhaps finally justice. 6 months before the dramatic courtroom scene, Vikram Patel sat at his cluttered desk in the Washington Tribune office. The newsroom buzzed with activity around him, but he barely noticed. His attention was fixed on his computer screen, where an anonymous email had appeared in his inbox 3 days ago. "Check Defense Intelligence Agency Memo, A7629B. Barrett authorized it all. That was it. No signature, no details, no way to reply." Vikram had spent the last 72 hours trying to verify if such a memo even existed. So far, he had hit nothing but dead ends. His desk phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was his editor, Ben Harris. "My office." "Now," Ben said before hanging up. Vikram sighed and walked across the newsroom. Ben's office had glass walls, but the blinds were drawn. That usually meant trouble. Vikram knocked once and entered. Ben sat behind his desk, a half-eaten sandwich pushed to one side. At 55, Ben had been in journalism for over 30 years. His white shirt had coffee stains and his tie was loose around his neck. Next to him stood Nancy Clark, the Tribune's managing editor. "Close the door," Ben said. Vikram did as he was told and sat down. "Someone from the Justice Department called," Ben said without preamble. "They know you're asking questions about a classified memo. They wanted to remind us about the Espionage Act." Nancy folded her arms. "In other words, they're threatening us." Vikram leaned forward. "So the memo exists." Ben and Nancy exchanged glances. "What exactly are you working on, Vic?" Ben asked. "And don't give me that just following a lead nonsense. The Justice Department doesn't make calls about nothing." Vikram hesitated, then decided to trust them. "I got a tip about a DIA memo that supposedly shows Judge Diana Barrett authorized an illegal surveillance program back when she worked as special counsel to the intelligence community." "Diana Barrett?" Nancy's eyebrows shot up. "The same Judge Barrett who's being considered for the Supreme Court next year?" Vikram nodded. "The same." Ben whistled low. "No wonder they're nervous. But Vic, you need more than an anonymous tip to go after someone like Barrett." "I know. I'm trying to find someone who can confirm the memo exists." "Well, do it quietly," Ben warned, "and keep us in the loop. If the Justice Department is already watching, this is bigger than we thought." That evening, Vikram stayed late, at the office. The newsroom was almost empty, just a few reporters on the night shift. He scrolled through his contacts looking for anyone who might help. His finger stopped at a name. Alan Goldman. Goldman was a retired intelligence analyst Vikram had quoted in previous stories. He had good sources and, more importantly, hated government overreach. Vikram dialed his number. "It's a bit late for a social call, Patel," Goldman answered gruffly. "I need information, Alan, off the record." There was a pause. "You still use that secure messaging app I showed you?" "Yes." "Switch to that." 10 minutes. Exactly 10 minutes later, Vikram's phone buzzed with a message. "What do you need?" Goldman asked. Vikram typed quickly. "DIA memo, A7629B. Does it exist? 3 dots appeared as Goldman typed his response. Vikram waited nervously. "That memo exists," Goldman finally replied. "But it's classified. Someone sanitized the records after the program went sideways. 3 agents died in Karachi because of Barrett's authorization." Vikram's heart raced. "I need proof, Alan. Not just allegations. Check with Greg Simmons. He was Barrett's clerk before she got elevated to the federal bench. He might talk. Word. Is he resigned rather than sign off on some of her decisions? How do I find him? He teaches law at Georgetown now. But be careful, Vic. People who ask questions about that operation tend to have accidents." The next morning, Vikram called in sick. Instead of going to the Tribune, he drove to Georgetown University. The law building was easy to find, an imposing structure of red brick and white columns. Vikram checked the faculty directory and found Professor Gregory Simmons' office on the 3rd floor. The door was open. Inside, a man in his late 30s sat behind a desk covered with student papers. His brown hair was neatly cut, and he wore a tweed jacket with elbow patches. He looked up as Vikram knocked on the doorframe. "Professor Simmons? I'm Vikram Patel, from the Washington Tribune." The man's friendly expression instantly closed off. "I don't talk to reporters. Good day." "It's about Judge Barrett," Vikram said quickly, "and the Karachi operation." Simmons stood up so fast that his chair rolled back and hit the wall. He walked to the door and closed it. "Who sent you?" he demanded, his voice low and tense. "Alan Goldman suggested I talk to you." Simmons ran a hand through his hair. "You need to leave. Now." 3 agents died, Vikram pressed. "And someone's covering it up. I think you left because you couldn't be part of it." The professor stared at him for a long moment. "You have no idea what you're getting into." "Then tell me." Simmons checked his watch. "I have a class in 10 minutes. Meet me at the Lincoln Memorial at 7 p.m. Come alone." Vikram spent the day researching Judge Diana Barrett's career. Her record was impressive. Harvard Law, 10 years at a top firm, special counsel to the intelligence community during the previous administration, then a federal judgeship, She was known for her sharp mind and no-nonsense approach in court. At 7 p.m., Vikram stood by the Lincoln Memorial, watching tourists take photos. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the mall. He checked his watch repeatedly. At 7:20, he was about to give up when he spotted Simmons walking up the steps. The professor looked nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder. "I almost didn't come," Simmons said when he reached Vikram. "I'm glad you did." Simmons led him to a bench with a view of the Washington Monument. "I can't be your source. I signed too many confidentiality agreements, but I can point you towards someone who can help. Linda Vasquez in the records division. Tell her I sent you." "What's her connection to this?" "She knows where the bodies are buried, figuratively speaking." Simmons handed Vikram a business card with a phone number written on the back. "This is her direct line. Don't call from your office." "Was it as bad as Goldman said?" Vikram asked. Simmons looked out at the monument. "Worse. The surveillance program Judge Barrett authorized was called Eagle Eye. It monitored American citizens with family connections in certain countries. The data it collected was used to plan the Karachi operation. What went wrong? The intelligence was flawed. The agents walked into a trap." Simmons stood up. "That's all I can say. Talk to Vasquez." The next morning, Vikram used a payphone to call the number Simmons had given him. Records Division, Vasquez speaking. The voice was professional with a slight accent. "My name is Vikram Patel. Greg Simmons suggested I call you." There was a long pause. "I don't know any Greg Simmons." "It's about Eagle Eye." Another pause. "The cafeteria in the National Archives building. Noon today." The line went dead. At noon, Vikram sat in the cafeteria, a cup of coffee in front of him. The place was busy with tourists and researchers taking lunch breaks. He wasn't sure he would recognize Linda Vasquez. A woman in her 40s with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun sat down across from him. She wore a government ID badge that she quickly tucked into her jacket. "You're Patel?" she asked without introducing herself. Vikram nodded. The woman, presumably Linda Vasquez, slid a sticky note across the table. "File Room B, Cabinet 37, Thursday between 2 and 4 p.m. Security rotation gives you a 20-minute window. This conversation never happened." She stood up to leave, but Vikram caught her arm. "Why are you helping me?" Her eyes were hard. "My brother was one of the agents in Karachi." 2 days later, Vikram used a visitor pass to enter the National Archives. He followed the directions on the sticky note, finding File Room B in a basement level. The room was full of metal cabinets, each with a numbered label. Cabinet 37 was in the back corner. Vikram checked his watch. 2:30 p.m. The security camera in the corner had a small red light that was currently off. His window had begun. He opened the cabinet and quickly flipped through the files. He found the right section, but where memo jar A7629B should have been, there was only an empty folder. His heart sank. Someone had removed it. Then he noticed a small envelope taped to the back of the cabinet. His name was written on it in small letters. Inside was a handwritten note with an encryption key and a dark web address. Vikram memorized both, then put the empty envelope back. As he closed the cabinet, the red light on the security camera blinked back to life. That night, in his apartment, Vikram used the encryption key to access the dark web address. What he found made his blood run cold. It wasn't just the memo, it was emails, operational reports, and death certificates. The full story of Eagle Eye and how it led to the disaster in Karachi, and on every key document, Judge Diana Barrett's signature. His phone rang. It was Ben from the Tribune. "You better get in here," his editor said, his voice grim. "2 FBI agents are asking questions about you." Vikram looked at his screen, at the evidence he'd spent months seeking. "Tell them I'll be there in an hour," he said. The game was about to change, and Judge Barrett was about to face the truth she had tried to bury. Vikram Patel walked into the Washington Tribune building with a heavy weight on his shoulders. The evidence he had found was explosive. It proved that Judge Diana Barrett had authorized an illegal surveillance program that led to the deaths of 3 American agents in Karachi, but proving it meant revealing his sources, and that could put people in danger. The security guard at the front desk gave him a strange look. "The FBI guys are upstairs with Mr. Harris. They've been asking about you all morning?" "Thanks, Joe," Vikram said, trying to sound casual. He took the elevator to the 5th floor. The newsroom was unusually quiet. Everyone seemed to be watching him as he walked toward Ben Harris's office. Through the glass walls, he could see Ben sitting with 2 men in dark suits. Nancy Clark intercepted him before he reached the office. "Be careful what you say, Vic. They don't have a warrant, but they're throwing around terms like national security and classified information." Vikram nodded. "I'll handle it." He knocked once and entered Ben's office. The 2 FBI agents turned to look at him. One was tall and thin with a closely shaved head. The other was shorter with a thick mustache. Both had the same blank expression that Vikram had seen on law enforcement officers many times before. "Mr. Patel," the taller agent said, "I'm Agent Wilson and this is Agent Reyes. We'd like to ask you some questions about your recent activities." Ben stood up. "Remember, Vic, you don't have to answer anything without a lawyer present." "It's fine, Ben," Vikram said, taking a seat. "I have nothing to hide." Agent Wilson opened a small notebook. "You've been asking questions about a classified Defense Intelligence Agency memo. We'd like to know why." "I'm a journalist. Asking questions is my job." "Not about classified materials," Agent Reyes said. "That could violate federal law." Vikram kept his face neutral. "I'm researching a story about government surveillance programs. Everything I've done is protected by the First Amendment." "Even breaking into secure government facilities?" Agent Wilson asked. Vikram felt a chill run down his spine. Had they seen him at the National Archives? "I haven't broken into any facilities. I visit public buildings for research sometimes." "What about the National Archives 2 days ago?" Agent Reyes pressed. "I was there doing research. I had a visitor pass. Nothing illegal about that." The agents exchanged glances. Agent Wilson leaned forward. "Mr. Patel, we know you're investigating the Karachi incident. That operation is classified. Publishing details about it could compromise national security and put lives at risk." 3. Lives were already lost because of that operation, Vikram said, his voice firm. "The public deserves to know why." "We're not here to debate policy," Agent Reyes said. "We're here to warn you that possessing or publishing classified information is a federal crime." Ben Harris had heard enough. "Unless you're charging my reporter with something, this conversation is over. The Tribune has good lawyers, gentlemen, very good lawyers." The agent stood up. "We'll be watching you, Mr. Patel," Agent Wilson said. "Think very carefully about your next move." After they left, Ben closed the office door. "What the hell have you gotten yourself into, Vic?" Vikram rubbed his tired eyes. "Something big, Ben. Bigger than I thought." "Tell me everything." For the next hour, Vikram explained what he had discovered. The Eagle Eye surveillance program, Judge Barrett's authorization, the flawed intelligence that sent 3 agents to their deaths in Karachi, the cover-up that followed. Ben whistled. "This is Pulitzer material, but it's also dangerous. Those FBI agents weren't bluffing. I know, but I can't stop now." "What's your next step?" Vikram thought for a moment. "I need to talk to the families of the agents who died. They deserve to know the truth." Ben nodded slowly. "Be careful, and keep me updated." That evening, Vikram drove to a small house in the suburbs of Arlington, Virginia. It belonged to Carol Martin, the widow of Agent Steve Martin, one of the men who died in Karachi. He had found her address in the documents from the encrypted file. The house was modest but well kept, with flowers in the front yard and a small American flag by the door. Vikram parked across the street and watched the house for a few minutes, gathering his courage. He was about to disrupt this woman's life with painful truths. Finally, he walked up to the door and rang the bell. A woman in her early 40s answered. She had blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes. Mrs. Martin? Vikram asked. Yes? My name is Vikram Patel. I'm a reporter with the Washington Tribune. I'd like to talk to you about your husband. Her expression hardened. The government already told me everything I need to know about how Steve died. He was a hero who gave his life for his country. That's all that matters. She started to close the door, but Vikram spoke quickly. What if I told you the government lied about how he died? What if I told you his death could have been prevented? The door stopped. Carol Martin stared at him. You better not be making this up. I'm not. Please just give me 10 minutes. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. 10 minutes. Inside, the house was filled with photos of Steve Martin, in his uniform, at their wedding, playing with a young girl who must be their daughter. She's at a friend's house, Carol said, noticing Vikram looking at the photos. What's this about? Vikram sat down at the kitchen table. Mrs. Martin, what did they tell you about how Steve died? She sat across from him. That he was part of a team investigating terrorist activities in Pakistan. There was an ambush. He and 2 others were killed. Did they tell you why there was an ambush? Why the terrorists knew exactly where to find them? She frowned. They said it was bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. Vikram shook his head. It wasn't bad luck. The intelligence they were given was flawed. It came from an illegal surveillance program called Eagle Eye. The program monitored American citizens with family ties to certain countries. The data it collected was used to plan the Karachi operation. Carol's face paled. Are you saying my husband died because of bad intelligence from an illegal program? Yes. And the person who authorized that program was Judge Diana Barrett. The federal judge? The one they talk about for the Supreme Court? Vikram nodded. The same. Carol's hands trembled as she reached for a glass of water. Do you have proof? Yes. But I need your help to make it public. The government is trying to bury this story. For a long moment, Carol was silent. Then she stood up and walked to a bookshelf. She returned with a small box. These are the letters Steve sent me from his last mission, she said, opening the box. In his final letter, he wrote that something about the operation felt wrong. The intelligence didn't make sense. He was worried. She handed Vikram the letter. The handwriting was neat and small. Something's not right about this op, Carol. The intel is conflicting. Johnson feels the same way. We've raised concerns, but orders are orders. I'll be careful, I promise. Vikram looked up from the letter. Johnson was one of the other agents who died? Carol nodded. Kevin Johnson. They were friends. His wife Lisa lives about 20 minutes from here. Would you be willing to introduce me to her? Carol thought for a moment. If what you're saying is true, the people responsible for Steve's death need to be held accountable. I'll call Lisa now. The next day, Vikram met with both women at Lisa Johnson's house. Lisa was younger than Carol, with dark hair and fierce eyes. She had a 3-year-old son who played in the next room while they talked. I always knew they weren't telling us everything, Lisa said after Vikram explained his investigation. Kevin called me the night before the operation. He was worried, said the intelligence was sketchy. Did he mention where the intelligence came from? Vikram asked. No. But he did say something about a judge who had signed off on it. Said they were covering their tracks. Vikram's heart raced. Did he mention a name? Lisa frowned, trying to remember. I think it started with a B. Barrett, maybe? It was a woman. Carol leaned forward. What do you need from us, Mr. Patel? I'm going to publish this story. When I do, the government will try to discredit me. They'll say I'm making it up. But they can't ignore the families of the men who died. If you're willing to speak out to demand answers, it would make a huge difference. The 2 women exchanged glances. Then Lisa spoke. My son will never know his father. If Judge Barrett's actions are why, then yes, I'll speak out. Carol nodded, in agreement. Steve deserves justice, we all do. As Vikram drove back to the city, his phone rang. It was Linda Vasquez from the Records Division. They know you have the files, she said without greeting. They're preparing a case against you for possessing classified information. You need to move fast. I'm publishing the story tomorrow, Vikram said, but I need one more thing. Is there any way to prove the memo was declassified? There was a long pause. Check your email in 1 hour, and be careful. They're watching you. True to her word, an email arrived exactly 1 hour later. It contained a single document, an order to declassify memo A7629B, signed by the current administration 3 months ago. The memo had been legally declassified but kept hidden from the public. Vikram now had everything he needed. He called Ben Harris. "I'm ready to write," he said. "And Ben, this is going to shake Washington to its core." Vikram Patel sat at his desk in the Washington Tribune office, his fingers flying across the keyboard. It was 3 a.m., and the newsroom was empty except for the night editor and a few staff working on the morning edition. Vikram had been writing, for hours, carefully crafting the story that would expose Judge Diana Barrett and the Eagle Eye program. The first article was titled, "Shadow Program: How Illegal Surveillance Led to Deaths of American Agents." He detailed how Judge Barrett, while serving as special counsel to the intelligence community, had authorized a program to monitor American citizens with family ties to certain countries. The data from this program had been used to plan the Karachi operation, which ended in disaster when 3 agents walked into a trap. The second article focused on the cover-up that followed, how records were altered, families were misled, and a declassified memo was hidden from public view. Vikram was careful not to reveal his sources, but he included quotes from Carol Martin and Lisa Johnson, the widows of 2 of the dead agents. At 6 a.m., Ben Harris arrived at the office. He looked surprised to see Vikram still there. "Have you been here all night?" he asked. Vikram nodded. "I finished both articles. They're ready for you to review." Ben sat down and read the stories carefully. When he finished, he let out a long breath. "This is explosive, Vic. Are you absolutely sure about every detail?" "I've triple-checked everything. I have documents to back up every claim. Judge Barrett will deny it all. She'll say the documents are fake or taken out of context. That's why I have the declassification order. The memo is official government record now. She can't hide from her own signature." Ben nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll have Nancy and the legal team review these. If they clear it, we'll publish tomorrow morning front page." Vikram stood up. "I should go home and get some sleep." "Good idea. And Vic, watch your back. This story is going to make some powerful people very angry." As Vikram walked to his car in the parking garage, he felt a prickling sensation on the back of his neck. Someone was watching him. He turned quickly but saw only empty spaces between parked cars. Still, he hurried to his vehicle and locked the doors as soon as he got inside. He was too tired to cook when he got home, so he ordered pizza and took a long shower. As the hot water washed over him, he thought about the past few months, the anonymous tip that started it all, the hidden documents, the grieving widows. It had been a winding path to the truth, but tomorrow the world would know what really happened in Karachi. The doorbell rang just as he was getting dressed. He expected it to be the pizza delivery, but when he looked through the peephole, he saw Agent Wilson from the FBI. Vikram opened the door cautiously. "Agent Wilson, what can I do for you?" Wilson was alone this time. He looked tired. "May I come in, Mr. Patel? This isn't an official visit." Vikram hesitated, then stepped aside. "What's this about?" Wilson entered the apartment and looked around, before speaking. "I know what you're planning to publish tomorrow, about Judge Barrett and Eagle Eye. How did you? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you understand the consequences. Publishing that story won't just end Barrett's career. It will damage the entire intelligence community." Vikram crossed his arms. 3 men died because of that program. Their families deserve the truth. Wilson sighed. "Look, I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to warn you. There are people who want this story buried, people who will go to extreme lengths to make that happen." "Are you saying my life is in danger?" I'm saying be careful. Don't trust anyone. Wilson handed Vikram a card with a phone number written on the back. If you need help, call this number, day or night. Why are you helping me? Wilson's face darkened. Let's just say I've seen too many good agents die for bad intelligence. The system needs more accountability, not less. After Wilson left, Vikram stood by the window, watching as the agent got into an unmarked car and drove away. The pizza delivery arrived a few minutes later, but Vikram had lost his appetite. He put the pizza in the refrigerator and tried to sleep, but his mind was racing. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Storage Unit 227 Westlake Facility. Code 5591. Go now. They're coming for the evidence. Vikram stared at the message. It could be a trap, but it could also be Linda Vasquez warning him again. He decided to take the risk. The Westlake storage facility was on the outskirts of the city, a series of single-story buildings with roll-up doors. Unit 227 was in the back, away from the main office. Vikram entered the code on the keypad, and the lock clicked open. Inside, he found a laptop and a thumb drive on a small table. There was also a note, original files, backup for your safety, LV. As Vikram reached for the laptop, he heard a car pull up outside. He peeked through a crack in the door and saw a black SUV. Two men in suits got out and looked around. They weren't FBI. Their movements were too fluid, too practiced. These were men who knew how to use violence. Vikram quickly grabbed the laptop and thumb drive, stuffing them into his backpack. There was a back door to the unit, leading to an alley. He slipped out just as the men reached the front door. He ran through the alley and out to the street where he hailed a passing taxi. Washington Tribune, please. Quickly. In the taxi, Vikram opened the laptop. It required a password. He tried, Eagle Eye, and was surprised when it worked. The screen filled with files. The original memo with Judge Barrett's signature, emails discussing the Karachi operation, reports on the surveillance program. Everything he needed to prove his story beyond any doubt. When he reached the Tribune building, he went straight to Ben's office. Nancy Clark was there too, along with Susan Gray from the legal department. The legal team cleared your articles, Ben said. We're publishing tomorrow. There's more, Vikram said, placing the laptop on the desk. I just received these files. They're the original documents about Eagle Eye and Karachi, including the memo with Barrett's signature. The three editors looked at the screen as Vikram opened the files. Where did you get these? Susan asked. AI source, the same one who led me to the declassified memo. Nancy adjusted her glasses. This changes everything. With these documents, Barrett can't deny her involvement. We need to update the articles, Ben said. Add these new details. Vikram worked through the night again, revising his stories with the new information. The articles now included specific details about how the Eagle Eye program had collected flawed intelligence, how Judge Barrett had dismissed concerns about its legality, and how the operation in Karachi had been compromised from the start. The next morning, the Washington Tribune's front page carried the headline, Shadow Program: How Illegal Surveillance Led to Deaths of American Agents. Below, it was Vikram's byline and a photo of the three agents who had died in Karachi. The story went viral within hours. Other news outlets picked it up. Senators called for investigations. The Justice Department issued a statement saying it was reviewing the allegations. Judge Diana Barrett issued her own statement, denying everything. She called the articles fabrications based on anonymous sources and demanded a retraction. When the Tribune refused, she filed a lawsuit against Vikram and the newspaper claiming defamation. That afternoon, Vikram received a call from Ben. Barrett's lawyers want to meet. They're offering to drop the lawsuit if we reveal our sources and issue an apology. Vikram laughed without humor. Not going to happen. I told them that. The meeting is set for tomorrow at 10 a.m. You should be there. I'll be ready. As Vikram hung up, his phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. She's desperate. She knows you have the memo. Be careful. Vikram looked out his office window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Judge Barrett was planning her next move. But Vikram had the truth on his side, and tomorrow in that meeting, he would show her just how much evidence he had. The final showdown was about to begin. The conference room at the Washington Tribune was set up for the meeting. A long table with chairs on both sides, water pitchers and glasses, notepads and pens. Vikram Patel sat on one side with Ben Harris, Nancy Clark, and Susan Gray from the legal department. They waited for Judge Barrett and her lawyers to arrive. Vikram felt calm despite the importance of this moment. He had the truth on his side, the declassified memo, the laptop with the original files, the testimonies of the agents' widows. It was all there, solid and undeniable. The door opened, and Judge Diana Barrett walked in. She looked different from her courtroom appearance, more tired, less confident. Behind her came three men in expensive suits carrying leather briefcases. Her legal team. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," said the oldest lawyer as they all sat down. "I'm Richard Dunham, Judge Barrett's lead counsel. We're here to discuss a resolution to this unfortunate situation." Susan Gray, the Tribune's lawyer, nodded. "We're listening." Richard Dunham placed a document on the table. "We have prepared a settlement offer. The Tribune will publish a retraction of Mr. Patel's articles. Mr. Patel will reveal his sources for investigation of possible criminal charges. In return, Judge Barrett will drop her defamation lawsuit." Ben Harris laughed out loud. "That's not a settlement. That's a surrender. Your articles have damaged Judge Barrett's reputation based on stolen classified documents and anonymous sources," Dunham said. "We're offering a way to avoid a lengthy and costly legal battle." Vikram leaned forward. "The documents aren't stolen. They were declassified 3 months ago. I have the declassification order." Judge Barrett spoke for the first time. "Those documents were taken out of context. The Eagle Eye program was legal at the time. I had proper authorization." "And the 3 agents who died in Karachi?" Vikram asked. "Was sending them to their deaths based on flawed intelligence also authorized?" Barrett's face hardened. "You don't understand the complexities of intelligence operations, Mr. Patel. Risks are part of the job." "Their widows understand the risks," Vikram said. "What they don't understand is why they were lied to about how their husbands died," Dunham interrupted. "We're not here to debate intelligence policy. We're here to resolve a defamation case." Susan Gray placed a folder on the table. "If you insist on pursuing this lawsuit, we are prepared to defend our reporting vigorously. We have substantial evidence supporting everything in Mr. Patel's articles." "Anonymous sources aren't evidence," one of the other lawyers said. Vikram reached into his bag and pulled out the laptop he had found in the storage unit. He opened it and turned it so everyone could see the screen. "These aren't anonymous sources. These are the original files from the Eagle Eye program and the Karachi operation, including the memo with Judge Barrett's signature authorizing the surveillance of American citizens." Judge Barrett's face went pale as she saw the files on the screen. "Where did you get that?" "A concerned citizen who believes the public deserves the truth." Barrett leaned over to whisper with her lawyers. The room was tense as they discussed, in hushed voices. Finally, Dunham turned back to the Tribune team. "We need to assess this new information. We request a brief recess." "Of course," Susan said. "We'll give you the room." As they left the conference room, Ben put a hand on Vikram's shoulder. "You just changed the game. They weren't expecting you to have those files." "What do you think they'll do now?" Vikram asked. Nancy smiled. "They'll look for a way to save face. Barrett knows she's in trouble." They waited in Ben's office for nearly an hour before Susan's phone rang. After a brief conversation, she turned to the others. "They're ready to talk again." When they returned to the conference room, Judge Barrett was alone. Her lawyers were gone. "My legal team is drafting a new proposal," she said, "but I wanted to speak with you privately first." Vikram exchanged glances with his colleagues, then nodded. "We're listening." Barrett folded her hands on the table. 5 years ago, I was asked to review a surveillance program that would help identify potential threats to national security. The program monitored communications of American citizens with family ties to certain countries. I was assured it was legal under the Patriot Act. It wasn't, Vikram said. I know that now, Barrett admitted. But at the time, I believed I was protecting the country. When the Karachi operation went wrong, there was pressure to hide the connection, to Eagle Eye. The 3 agents who died were heroes. No one wanted their deaths associated with a flawed program. So you covered it up, Nancy said. Barrett nodded slowly. I signed off on reports that omitted key details. I told myself it was to protect national security, but really it was to protect careers, including my own. And now? Ben asked. Now I want to make it right, Barrett said. I'll withdraw my lawsuit. I'll issue a public statement taking responsibility for my role in Eagle Eye and the Karachi operation. In return, I ask only that you report my side of the story fairly. Susan looked skeptical. Why the sudden change of heart? Because Mr. Patel was right, Barrett said, looking directly at Vikram. The families of those agents deserve the truth, and continuing to fight will only bring more pain to everyone involved. The Tribune team stepped outside to discuss the offer. Could be a trap, Nancy warned. I don't think so, Vikram said. She knows we have the evidence. Fighting will only make it worse for her. We should get her statement in writing, Susan advised. And she should agree to an on-the-record interview with Vikram. They returned to the conference room and laid out their conditions. Barrett agreed to everything. 2 days later, the Washington Tribune published a new article. Judge Barrett admits role in failed intelligence operation. It included Barrett's full statement, taking responsibility for the Eagle Eye program and the Karachi disaster. She announced her resignation from the federal bench and her cooperation with the Justice Department investigation. The story made headlines nationwide. Congress announced hearings on intelligence oversight. The families of the fallen agents received formal apologies from the government and access to the full, unredacted reports about the Karachi operation. 1 week after Barrett's confession, Vikram visited Arlington National Cemetery. The 3 agents who died in Karachi, Steve Martin, Kevin Johnson, and Paul Rodriguez, were buried there with full honors. Their widows had placed fresh flowers on the graves. Carol Martin noticed Vikram standing at a respectful distance. She walked over to him. Thank you for what you did, she said. Steve would have wanted the truth to come out. I just followed the evidence, Vikram said. It took courage, Carol replied, the kind of courage Steve had. Lisa Johnson joined them along with Maria Rodriguez, the widow of the 3rd agent. We're organizing a foundation in their names, Lisa said, to help families of fallen intelligence officers. We'd like you to be on the board. Vikram was touched. I'd be honored. As they walked through the cemetery, Maria asked, Will you ever reveal who your source was? The one who gave you the declassified memo? Vikram shook his head. Some sources need to stay protected. What he didn't say was that he had figured it out. The anonymous email that started it all. The guidance from Linda Vasquez. The laptop in the storage unit. It all pointed to one person, Agent Wilson from the FBI. Wilson had been investigating the Eagle Eye program himself, looking for justice for the fallen agents. He had used Vikram to bring the truth to light when official channels failed. That evening, Vikram returned to the Tribune office. A small package waited on his desk. Inside was a medal, the Distinguished Intelligence Cross, with a note. This belonged to my brother Paul. He died for the truth. Now you've honored his sacrifice. Thank you. LV. Linda Vasquez hadn't just been helping him because Wilson asked her to. She had personal reasons. Her brother was the 3rd agent, Paul Rodriguez. She had married and changed her name, hiding her connection to protect her career while she searched for the truth. Vikram carefully placed the medal in his desk drawer. The Eagle Eye story was over, but its impact would continue. Judge Barrett would face consequences for her actions. The intelligence system would be reformed, and 3 fallen agents would finally receive the honor and truth they deserved. As he looked out at the Washington skyline, Vikram thought about what Ben had told him when he first became an investigative reporter. Our job isn't just to report, The news. It's to shine light into dark corners, to hold the powerful accountable, to give voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Today, he had done exactly that.